And we are doing all right. Appreciate y'all for being here. Y'all follow us on all social media platforms so that y'all can get the update for when it's time to update. Okay, Voch Lombardi here, Bryan Broaddus over there. Let's get right into this work. I appreciate y'all for tuning in every Friday with us, and go check out Bryan and Jeff every Thursday, and go check out Bryan and Bobby Belt on Love the Star podcast. Bryan's doing a lot of work. You need to know about all these things we got going on here. Bryan Broaddus, you say you got some questions for us today.
I do, Voch. I got some questions for you, and I'm going to start it off this way. I'm going to start it off in a way that I think it'll get your attention right off the jump. So here we go. Could Tyler Smith be the best guard on this squad this season?
Yeah, he was the best guard on the squad last season. He was the best offensive lineman on the squad last season, Bryan Broaddus. You know, and I don't think that Tyler was the best guard because Zack Martin was bad, or I don't think he was the best guard because Terrence Steele was hurt and injured and recovering. I just think Tyler, we all knew when we was watching Tyler at Tulsa, like, man, this kid is whooping people. If he could just do this with his hands, boy, if he just get his helmet on that side, boy, if he just plant that foot instead of, don't cross your feet, Ty. If he just fixed those little issues, he'll be just fine. And one thing that we noticed, Bryan, you know, when I was watching film with my audience last year, it was a couple of things that we kept noticing. The people that Tyler Broaddus could not block at all, Tyler Smith and Zack Martin would block those gentlemen easily. And it came down to this matchup, Bryan. It was a couple of matchups. We deal with a lot of great, you know, 1-tech, 3-tech talent. You know, Dexter Lawrence and the Washington Football Wizard guys and all those kind of characters that we ran into. The Jets, Quentin Williams, we ran into those guys last year with Zack Martin and them. But it was the Eagles game, Bryan Broaddus, the first one and the second one, if we're being honest. The Eagles game where Jalen Carter, 3-tech for the Eagles, he was just tearing it up, Bryan Broaddus. And boy, Jalen Carter lined up against Zack Martin and hit him with a little quickness. Zack Martin's still stronger than you, right? But Jalen Carter hit him with a little inside quickness, and Zack had to recover. Man, Jalen Carter then moved over to Tyler Smith's side, and for whatever reason, he played 30 reps over there. Tyler may have lost his balance once, and he smoked the young phenom in Jalen Carter. And the more we watch film throughout the season, the more consistent, not just guard, but the whole line, even Tyron Smith, because Tyron Smith has some deficiencies in the run game, Bryan Broaddus. The one consistency is that Tyler Smith was living his best life over there versus whoever lined up against him, regardless of how that D lineman did versus anybody else.
I think that to me, and I think your assessment is absolutely right about the player. I think you're starting to see some slippage from Zack Martin, but I don't think in this particular the way I've asked you this question, I think it's more about Tyler Smith. It's not the slippage of Zack Martin. It's Tyler Smith's got better.
Yeah,
Tyler Smith has gotten better, and you know, anything that they thought about Tyler Smith, any thoughts that they knew Tyler Smith was really strong. Mm-hmm. They knew that Tyler Smith had some penalty history to him. Mm-hmm. They worked with his hands. They worked with his feet, better body positioning, strong guy, extremely tough. He naturally was the better player.
Sure.
And you're absolutely right. And I appreciate your assessment because you didn't hesitate on that one. That he clearly was the better player of the two. And I fully expect Zack Martin, though, to have a really good year. Mm-hmm. I expect Tyler Smith to be better than him.
100%. And then, Bryan, and then just some more context to this, right? You know, Zack got hurt early in the season, didn't play versus the Cardinals, didn't have an off season because he was dealing with some money stuff. Like he was sitting around until Josh Ball was just terrible. So that could have something to do with it. But I mean, I just want to let people know, we hear a lot of people say that, you know, Zack Martin isn't what he once was. To be clear, Zack Martin is still like a top 8 guard in the league. He's still like top 6 or 7. You know what I mean? It's just that he's not that dude that'll line up against Dexter Lawrence and beat him every time. Zack's not that guy anymore. Tyler Smith might be that guy. And then, Bryan, if I could just put a little more content on your content, maybe this has to, maybe as draft guys, we have to think about how how we move forward, right? Like,
Yeah.
should we value the technique guy and go, okay, he can get stronger? Or
Right.
should we look at the strong dude and be like, I can teach him this and this and this? We were waiting years for Connor Williams to get stronger. We were waiting years for Tyler Broaddus to get stronger. And Bryan Broaddus didn't go back to Cooper Beebe, Brock Hoffman. Cooper Beebe has strength. He has power. He has leverage and athleticism. He don't know how to snap. He's never done it in a game. Brock is the veteran. He may know some veteran tricks. He may know how to line the offense. He's been in the offense 1 year, but I can teach Beebe that. What's going to help versus dudes that are better than you is natural strength and ass whoop. Tyler Smith had that in bunches. Cooper Beebe had that in bunches. So maybe moving forward in draft season, we'll look at a character that go, man, this dude's technique is bad, but he might be a first round pick because he's powerful and he's tenacious.
I get in trouble every year, Voch, with this one. The guys like the David Bakhtiaris.
Zach Tom is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Sure.
I get in trouble with these guys every year. Not strong enough, not strong enough, not strong enough. But you talk about technique.
The BYU kids, Brian O'Neill was another one. Sure.
Yeah. They all, every year I seem to think they got to get stronger. They got to get strong. That used to be something that was always on the top of my list for offensive linemen. Mm-hmm. Always. And don't get me wrong. Yes, you have to be strong to play this game. But on my scouting chart for offensive linemen, I gave it way too much credence. I put it way too high on my list because there's some guys that aren't strong that are playing this game at a very, very high level.
Sure.
They are. And so you mentioned the way you have to reevaluate where we're looking at these offensive linemen: footwork, technique, body position, playing space. Man, those are the ones that you need to start checking off now. Because you're right. You're in a division where you're playing against some powerful 1 and 3 techniques, especially some ones. But I tell you what, I get in trouble a lot now. Like, damn, I didn't think he was strong enough.
But I mean, Bryan, you're not wrong though.
I know, but it might hurt my evaluation of where I think the guy should go. Like these guys are, the David Bakhtiaris, the Colton Millers. Those guys, I was always kind of like, man, I don't know. They're getting walked here. They're getting pushed here. And then the next thing you know, they're like all pro offensive linemen. But I think with Tyler Smith, though, I think Tyler Smith's a combination of everybody was worried about the penalties and the hand placement and all that stuff like that. Yeah, this kid has his share of times where but every offensive lineman does. I mean, there's several times last year where Zack Martin, his hand position, body position was not good enough, and he got and he gave up pressure that way. So anyway, but I like your assessment on that.
Sure.
You mentioned Brock Hoffman and Cooper Beebe.
Yes, sir.
Is TJ Bass going to look better than Brock Hoffman and Cooper Beebe in camp?
I don't think so. I actually went back and it's something that I'm doing right now on the channel, Bryan Broaddus. I'm actually going from week 1 to playoffs. I'm just reevaluating the run game. I'm just running all the games back with a clear off-season mind. I'm just rewatching everything. And I was just watching the Cardinals game, and hey man, I thought TJ Bass was a little better than what I thought he was, right? But sometimes you have biases when you evaluate. If we're evaluating Brock Hoffman and Bass as backups, that's a fantastic grade for them because they're backups. But if we're grading Hoffman as a possible starter for you, or if we're grading Bass as a possible starter, I'm not seeing it from those guys as possible starters with that mindset. Then I'm evaluating them versus do I like Cooper Beebe better than them? And there's no world in which I like them better than Beebe. Now, to be fair, Beebe has not taken one snap in the NFL, and I think that's fair. Brock Hoffman and TJ Bass, they have played 2 games in the league. But this goes back to just strong guy, right?
Right.
Tyler Smith walked in the door better than Connor McGovern. And they tiptoed around it for a long time. And I was like, hey, man, Conor McGovern, I like you, but you can't hold a candle to this guy. I think we're going to get some of that same sentiments. Those dudes can play, but I think they're backups for a reason. I think Cooper Beebe is a 3rd-round pick for a reason. So they may be better than Cooper Beebe right now. But what's going to happen when BB continues his training and all that, and he gets to the offseason, we get to camp, and let's just say he starts whooping up on, I can't even think about the competition he would go up and get, Carl Davis or something. What if he started whooping all those guys?
That's something we need to focus on, by the way.
Sure.
That when we're at camp and all of a sudden TJ Bass and Brock Hoffman and all these guys start to look really good.
Yeah.
Is it because they're good players, like the assessment you just gave?
Sure.
Or
they just whipping Carl Davis.
Or they're whipping Carl Davis's ass every day.
Yeah. That was a big conversation too, right? Because in minicamp, right, Marshawn Nealon was flashing, but he was flashing versus Chuma Edoga, right? Like that's the conversation we got. Is he really, would he do that if Tyron Smith was here, right? So I guess we have to rely on Marshawn Nealon versus Terrence Steele to give us a good look. And it's not fair, but hey, Osa, go line up against what's his face there, Baz Hoffman and BB, just to see what life really looks like for them.
Yeah. There's a side of me that is, I'm interested because in camp I feel like, wow, Hoffman had a good day. Maybe Hoffman does have good days.
Sure.
Maybe Bass does have good days. And I'm starting to think, okay, are the 3 techniques and the 1 techniques other than Osa Odighizuwa having bad days? How many? Yeah. But then again, if Davis and and our rookie Rogers from Auburn, if those guys are having good days, I think I'm going to be more impressed, because I do feel like that BB, Hoffman to an extent, Bass, and you're right, backup guys. But if those 1 techniques are having good days, I think I'm going to have some concern. But I'm also going to think like, okay, because I think the competition for those defensive tackles is better than what the competition is for the offensive lineman going against the defensive tackles. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. 100%. I agree. But that's why this is so important. I'm going to be doing my show on some Wednesday, and Bryan Broaddus is going to call into my show and be like, hey, Voch, we just watched the Rams joint practice with the Cowboys or whatever, and Cooper Beebe's out here whooping Kobe Turner, but Kobe Turner whooped everybody else. These things are important. And maybe this is why in previous seasons Mike McCarthy didn't want to do joint practices, right? Because we were such a built team already, but now we're a team full of questions that we need to figure out. So these joint practices and preseason games are way more important this year than they were last year.
Yeah, I think the thing with the joint, I think there's some things that Jason Garrett was never afraid of calling 2 dudes out for one-on-one stuff in front of all the media and the fans and their team. I think Mike McCarthy is a little bit more hesitant to do the one-on-one stuff. Mike McCarthy is a little bit more about the mental health.
Yeah.
And I mean mental health, and I'm not trying to make light of mental health. Please don't clip me on this one.
Sure.
But just say, players that go one-on-one in front of everybody and then don't have success, what's the mental health of that football player that day?
Twitter's all over the place. Kelvin Joseph just got snagged on by TJ Vasher. Look at that. And look, Bryan, I'm going to break it down for 20 minutes. That video is going to get 50,000 views. 100%. Cut Kelvin Joseph right now. 100%. I get it.
Yeah, John Machota or David Hellman is going to have the video of somebody getting worked.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, the conversation on the We're Doing Fine podcast is talking about, hey man, Voch, at practice today, it was evident. It was very evident today that Ryan Flournoy can't get off press, because we're watching one-on-one stuff. That's what we do. But yeah, I think that Mike McCarthy is more into the mental health of his team than say Jason Garrett was.
Sure.
I think Jason Garrett's got a little of that Jimmy Johnson in him, where it's like, let's see some Oklahoma drill. Let's see some one-on-one stuff. Yeah. Jason Garrett's practices were actually really, really cool to evaluate because the way they practice. Mike McCarthy's a little bit different that way, but everybody does things differently.
Yeah.
Voch, this question for you. Which is going to be a bigger loss for the Cowboys this year, Tyron Smith or Jonathan Hankins?
Man, Tyron Smith may have had his problems in the run game, but he was a really good pass blocker. I used to watch him.
I'm interested to hear what you say after your evaluations here of what you're doing this summer and going back and watching these games.
Oh, yes, sir. I'll give you updates.
Because I think you're going to tell me about Tyron Smith probably had one of his better seasons in a while.
Tyron Smith was a phenomenal pass blocker for you.
Yeah, sure.
Solid run game stuff. Like nothing bad, but solid run game. But he was a phenomenal pass blocker. So we're a team that throws the ball 45 times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's important.
Maybe more now.
Maybe more now. That's important. Jonathan Hankins was on this run defense that got shredded anyway.
Okay.
That got shredded anyway. But this is the problem. Now let's add context. Let's add context to the party, right?
Yeah.
Mazi Smith starting one tech for you. That's a big problem. And maybe Jonathan Hankins with a different coaching philosophy, right? As opposed to the we're going to get sacks and turnovers team. Maybe Jonathan Hankins would benefit more on a more conservative sound, a more sound defense. Maybe Jonathan Hankins would be better in this defense that stacks and shares, that plays more sound defense. So Jonathan Hankins on this team will probably be better for you here than pass rushy Jonathan Hankins last year, right? So I feel like living in a world with Mazi versus living in a world with Tyler Guyton is your real question.
Okay.
Right? So if that's the question, Tyler Guyton's your first round pick, and ain't nothing I can do about that, right? And I think if he does anything better, he's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. So maybe we could live there throwing the ball 40 times. Plus, I feel like Dak Prescott can exist in a world where his left tackle play is goofy. Chuma Doug was over there. Cam
He's
Irvin,
done it before.
Cam Fleming, all the goofy left tackle stuff. Dak has been able to deal with it and make his left tackles work for you.
Well, maybe not Chaz Green.
Not Chaz Green at one time in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at the players that depend on my one tech play, boy, I'm excited about Louisville this year. I'm excited about Overshawn. I'm excited about Eric Kendricks. I need those dudes to be great. And for those dudes to be great, I need my one technique to be a little better. So I'm going to say I really wish Jonathan Hankins was here.
Man, I thought you were going the route that they were going to miss. Yeah, that they were going to miss Tyron Smith.
They're going to miss him, but at least they put a first-round pick in place of that guy. And there's a first-round pick in place of Jonathan Hankins, too. But these are two different first-round picks, I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay, you mentioned this. This is the question then is more about who do you have the most faith in right now? Is it Guyton
or Mazi?
That's an even better question because there's so much unknown for really both of them. I mean, you've seen Mazi play, but you're kind of. I wonder. I'm gonna ask you this question then.
Sure.
Do you think they misevaluated Mazi Smith?
No, and this is where I give grace to draft dudes. Nobody can anticipate what a player does when they get here.
Man, Will McClay stood up in that room and said, "This is our guy."
I watched film, man. Mazi wasn't a bad player, man.
He
was a 330-pound dude. He was strong. He was violent, and then he got his ass up and ran, Brian. He was an athlete for 330 pounds. We weren't wrong about the evaluation, Brian.
Right.
We don't know what happens when people get here.
Right.
The Cowboy stuff, the lights, the workout, the grind. Hey, you're not going to AP chemistry no more, or whatever the hell he's taking. This is football all day. Do you really love football? You know what I'm saying? Do you really want to practice more than you practice in college? Like, it's a lot that goes into it. And we don't know what's going to happen once they get here. You know what I'm saying? So we weren't wrong about Mazi. They weren't wrong about Mazi. Mazi probably told a great lie. Yeah, coach, I'm going to come in here and work hard and take somebody's job and hit people. I love to hit. I hate when players say I love to hit people. Mazi don't love to hit no damn body. Mazi hit nobody all year. Bryan Broaddus, we didn't misevaluate nothing. Okay. We didn't misevaluate nothing. So at least now, and look, Tyler Guyton said the same stuff. I like to be physical and hit people. Man, you ain't physical and hit nobody, man. You an athlete. Quit playing, Guyton. But at least, Brian, what's going to help us this season is going to come down to help. Can we help these guys? I can put Schoonmaker right next to Tyler Guyton if he needs help.
Right.
Nobody's going to help Mazi Smith. If anything, people double teaming Mazi.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I would like a better one tech there. I don't know how we do it, but I would just hope Mazi just ends up way better than what we expect. But who knows? We'll see.
Man, I like your answer. Because I've sitting there, I just totally agree with you, man. I just totally, I could say sometimes that ain't good podcasting, but you're not wrong.
It is.
I just, my hope is for Mazi.
Sure.
Because like I said, that Michigan film wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you were watching. The only thing now, when you evaluate, like in the last draft, when you look at, Chris Jenkins and how they play, and Chris Jenkins, he's slow off the ball. They read and then they react.
Yeah.
And I think what happened with Mazi is he's when things started to go a little south for him, he reverted back to Michigan technique because he's like, damn, at least I had some success doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looked like, and then you and I every week are like, look right here, everybody's hands off the ground, everybody's moving. Mazi's hands still on the ground. Mm-hmm. So,
but what if we just bring this back? And we've already mentioned this, but some people miss shows, Bryan Broaddus, as they shouldn't be missed shows. But like, would it be better this year when there's not so much of a priority on the get off of the first or the burst of fear? Because Zimmer probably every defensive dude values get off
things,
get off. So I'm not gonna say that, but at least pass rush Mazi, like take all that out of here, man. Like the upside, if Mazi develops into a pass rusher in week 7, here, right? Yeah. But can we get Mazi and focus on being a stacking, shedding one tech dude? Can we get him back on that? And can we get him back to 320 pounds? If he just only focuses on that, I think Mazi would be better than he was last year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
How about this, Bryan Broaddus? Is Mazi, if Mazi's better than he was last year, is that enough? How much does Mazi have to improve for it to be, for that to be good for you, acceptable for you?
How about give me a consistent rotational player?
Sure.
How about give me somebody that is playing, 18 to 23, 25 snaps a game?
Sure.
That is like, when he is in the game, they're not completely falling apart.
Yeah.
Give me a consistent rotational player that, and I'm not talking about Pro Football Focus grade. I'm just talking about Voch watching tape, Broaddus watching tape. That's what I want. And every week it's like, made some plays.
Yep.
Got off the ball, stacked blockers, allowed Leofau to get to that ball on that third down against the Cleveland Browns. Yep. I mean, hey, that's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking for any great defensive tackle that plays in this league.
Sure.
I just want a consistent.
Don't get smoked. Just don't get smoked. Everybody.
Don't get smoked. Don't be when you're on the field, the defense plays as at a minus level.
Sure.
Don't be that guy.
That's it.
That's what I plan. Got another question for you here. Which rookie do you worry about the learning curve being too steep?
Which rookie do I worry about the learning curve being too steep? That's a good one, Bryan Broaddus.
And I didn't give it to you ahead of time, and I should have. That's kind of unfair on me because now anytime you say that's a good question, Bryan Broaddus, means you're thinking about it.
I am a professional, Bryan, bro. How about this? They want you to do to buy yourself some time. Talk about 3 people. Watch this.
Okay.
So the learning curve so let's go Tyler Guyton, right?
Okay.
I think he's definitely got a bit of a learning curve because of just the nature of what left tackle is, right?
Is it too steep though? Do you think the learning curve is going to be too steep for him?
I think it's a big difference between the dudes you played at Kansas State versus Myles Garrett week 1. That's going to be that's a big ass curve, ain't it? You know what I'm saying? But think about this though, right? And the Cowboys do well at this. They pick a lot of seniors. Like they pick Senior Bowl guys. So, you know, these guys that have been playing a whole bunch, not Guyton in particular, who was a Senior Bowl guy, but Cooper Beebe's probably not going to be much of a learning curve because he's what he is kind of sort of right now. Marshawn Nealon's going to have to learn how to bend a little better, but he's as a run defender, he is what he is right now. Louisville even seems to be a guy. I mean, Zimmer will tell you he damn near ready to go right now.
He seems like the one guy that they talk about doesn't have a learning curve.
Sure, even Kalen Carson seems to be a dude that can line up and do something for you right now. Right. So the answer has to be your first round pick. You know, I'm not going to put too much stock into Flournoy and those guys. You know, we're not going to make it too big of a fuss about the 6th and 7th round guys. But your first round pick. Your first round pick is going to have to go from I'm learning football on the fly, I'm learning it versus Kansas State, and now I'm learning it versus Myles Garrett first. Then we got all the Ravens characters. Then we got all the you know what I'm saying? Like
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
So the learning curve, Tyler Guyton, you know what I'm saying? That's what we thought this whole time. Great foot athlete, great length, size, and all that. But you know, it's the intricacies, it's the actual football stuff that we need him to learn. And a lot of players don't learn that until year 2 or year 3. You always talk about Colton Miller. You weren't wrong about Colton Miller, by the way. Josh Rosen had all the damn quarterback hits, concussions, sacks, and injuries, and all that. So you weren't wrong about Colton Miller, but he got better. It took him 3 years though.
Right.
The unfortunate situation is Tyler Guyton can't learn behind Tyron Smith. He's got to play right now. It's going to be a big-ass learning curve when Myles Garrett can run around him. Myles Garrett can run through you. Myles Garrett going to eat up your little double team with Ferguson or whatever you're trying to do. He can take the inside gap on you. It's going to be a little bit of a curve for Guyton there, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's I kind of feel like that the learning curve for Nealon might be pretty steep.
Okay.
Because, and I say it in a way because you're right. I don't think he's a bendy guy.
Sure.
I don't think he's a particularly quick guy. I think there's some tremendous power in his game. Mm-hmm. But he's going to have to figure out, like, okay, if I'm not bendy and I'm not quick initially, what am I going to do? I just can't, I don't want to see a guy that rushes down the middle all day and gets stopped because all offensive linemen do is sit down on him.
Yep.
Hands inside, sit down. Hands inside, sit down. He's going to have to figure out ways to be productive without having, I think, some initial pass rush traits.
Sure.
We always talk about if a guy becomes the one-trick pony, like if we're watching one-on-one practice out there, you and I are out there standing there watching practice, and then every time he's stopped again, got him on the line of scrimmage, stopped again.
Yeah.
That the learning curve for him is going to be, how do I come up with something other than using power?
Sure.
And that's where I think, and I don't want him to fall into that trap of, I don't want him to fall in that trap of, well, all he is a power guy.
Yeah.
I need him to figure out some things hey, guys that go to USC and LSU and Texas, sometimes it ain't the school. It's, but he's got to figure that out. And I think the guy that's the most ready to play, I would say that BB's ready to play.
He's ready right now. Yeah.
I would say BB is ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
Leofau, we've talked about him a bunch on our show.
Sure.
And this is knee-jerk Bryan Broaddus 3 practice. I'm watching a guy that looks like to me that he kind of gets this, that he understands, okay, my responsibility is this. I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
I need to do this. Because I think there's some limitations with him. I don't think he's the best athlete of the linebacker group. but I think he's one of the smartest, and I think the instincts play really well here. So I kind of feel like him, BB, probably most ready to play. Guyton, that's going to be. You're right. You're right about Guyton. He's going to have to learn how to. He's probably going to have some bad days and practice, and he's going to and hopefully he's mentally tough enough to get through those bad days and understand that, okay, I let Parsons get me on this one. I let Lawrence get me on this one. I let somebody get me on this one. Hopefully he's strong enough to kind of put those good days together, because they're going to need him to play at a very, very high level. Sure. Right out of the gate, as you mentioned. So
now, Brian, let me just say this before we move on. I wasn't the hugest fan of the Guyton pick. I had my.
Oh, I know you weren't. I know you weren't.
Like if we listed all of those offensive linemen, right?
And we talked about this pre-draft, and you had your concerns. He
was at the end of that list, Brian. Bro,
boy,
if we would have gotten Graham Barton, boy, we'd have been having a whole nother conversation. But I think we're fine now. But Brian, let me just say this about Duke Manyweather.
Yeah.
And I got all the faith in the world. Duke has already proven me wrong with his work with Terrence Steele and his work with, Tyler Smith.
Right.
I don't doubt Duke Manyweather as is, Bryan Broaddus. I'm just on this wood. If he can fix Tyler Guyton.
Yes.
If Duke Manyweather can have Tyler Guyton ready and look, he ain't got to be Tyron Smith week 1.
Right.
But if he's just, hey, we're not getting smoked on this left side over here.
Right.
I need to hand Duke Manyweather some money. I need to go fund me, Cashapp, Duke, whatever we need to do, Brian, bro. Because what he's done is he's taken offensive linemen, Cowboy offensive linemen that we've had reservations about.
Absolutely.
And whatever those reservations were, Terrence Steele, Tyler Smith, Tyler Guyton, whoever you want to pick, he's taken those reservations and erased them. If he could do this with Tyler Guyton, I never doubt him again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I like I said, there's Guyton does have the ability. Yeah. He does have the ability. He does have the body type,
athleticism, feet. Yep,
he's got it all. But he does need some refinement in some ways. And again, I hope he's mentally tough.
Yeah.
That's what I need him to be really mentally tough right now. All right. Got some more questions for you. We got time, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The CeeDee Lamb holdout will last 10 days in camp.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb's one of those guys where I don't even have to, he ain't got to practice. The only thing I don't want from him is like to, hamstring stuff, soft tissue stuff. Like I don't want him to have to deal with that because of sitting out. But if there's a guy that I'm sure is going to be ready, that's going to be like, prepared and all that, I think CeeDee Lamb is as locked in as ever, because he may not be working with the team, but he's at Dak's house. He's at Dak's house, and he's working with his own, with his own guys or whatever. So I think CeeDee Lamb will be ready. I think that his contract is just a matter of time. I think Dak's contract is a matter of time. I think Micah's contract could be interesting.
Yeah.
I think Micah's talk is a lot more interesting than all these other characters, but I think Dak and CeeDee will get sealed up pretty good.
So you're thinking we had David Hellman on our show on the G-Bag Nation on 105.3 The Fan the other day. And Hellman's like, come on, Brian, we've lived this before.
Sure.
We've lived the 10 days of training camp, and then all of a sudden they show up.
Yeah.
I think Dave makes a lot of sense there.
Sure.
I do feel like, though, they've got a lot of – the thing that bothers me about the CeeDee Lamb contract is they've got a lot of parameters in place. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of things, you've seen some of the top guys sign.
Yeah. You
know what the money is. Where do you see CeeDee Lamb in that order of the guys that have signed?
Sure.
That's what Now, if CeeDee's group is making it difficult on you, okay, which they should. They should make it difficult on you. I mean, I think Adam Pacifica and Todd Williams and Stephen Jones expect it to be difficult. These things are never easy. Yeah. But at least you have an idea where you need to be. And so I can understand why Hellman said what he said.
Yeah.
We're gonna have 10 days out there in Oxnard, no CeeDee Lamb, and then we're going to come out to practice one day, and Todd Archer's going to report that CeeDee Lamb signed, and here we go, kind of a thing.
Yeah, there's not a doubt in my mind that Lamb gets signed, because if you go back to last year, it was Zack Martin. You know, he wanted some money, and they was like, nah, man. And Zach was like, all right, I ain't coming to practice. And Josh Ball went out there and stunk it up. Hey, let me tell you something. Man. If you want more money, make sure whoever's behind you is horrid. You know what I'm saying? So if you CeeDee Lamb now, you just be like, all right, cool. Just play Jalen Tolbert as your new move around guy. Cool. Play. All right. So Brian, look, when we always talk about Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, right? We always talk about those guys in context of CeeDee Lamb being on the field. Just imagine if your wide receiver lineup was Jalen Brooks, Brandon Cooks, and Jalen Tolbert in the slot. That ain't enough. Yeah, not enough. Those dudes are good when Lamb is on the field, and if they're the fourth option. But if they're the 2 and 3, nah, man. You know, Lamb is definitely going to get his money, and it sooner or later. We don't know which one it's going to be, but he'll be ready mid camp or something.
Yeah, I don't worry about him not being ready.
Sure.
I think there's going to be some practices out there where it's going to be a fight to say something like, wow, you know, Brooks really had a great day today, or or, you know, and hopefully Tolbert, Brooks, Cooks, all those guys, they do have good days. Flournoy, hopefully they do have good days.
We need them.
But it's going to be like you say, it's going to be clear when you don't have Lamb out there running around, especially when they go to team period.
Yeah.
Or they go to that one-on-one period, and those secondary guys are just eating these receivers up, and it's a struggle and all that. So
let me ask you this though, right? If Bryan Broaddus is the head coach, how do you treat your superstar players at camp? Are you in the mindset of, hey man, I don't want these guys to get hurt. I know who you are. I don't need to see much of you. Or are you the hard-nosed dude that practice, and it'll pay off later on in the season because we're so tough?
I come from the era of we're so tough. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the era. But I learned working for Mike Holmgren, which is the Bill Walsh way of doing things. I went from watching Jimmy Johnson in 1992, when I was working in NFL Europe, and I was going to practice 1990, 91. I was watching those teams. I was going to St. Ed's in Austin and watching Jimmy and Oklahoma drills and physicality, a different era of player.
Sure.
Players are tough. Don't ever question a player's toughness. Football's a tough game. You know that. We've been a part of this game. Yeah. But it was a different time. I saw that. I respected that. When I worked with the Cowboys, when we were in Wichita Falls, our roster wasn't good enough, but I saw what heat and problems and overwork does to your team. It kills your team.
Sure.
But I saw that with, like I say, in the early 90s too as well. I saw that with Mike Holmgren and the Bill Walsh. I think I subscribe to the Bill Walsh way. Mm-hmm. And I subscribe to that just because I know as a personnel guy, I could not stand, and I would tell the guys, the coaches that I work for, I told them, I was like, listen, if we get really, really, really banged up here, I can't replace these guys. Yep. I'm sorry. I can't. You're going to not like the group of guys that I'm going to run through here and try and, and so, I'm not trying to hide from tough work. I'm trying to keep my team as healthy as possible because I think there's a way of doing this. I think there's a way of practicing. Like I told you earlier, I think Mike McCarthy, as a scout, you really can't get a whole hell of a lot out of the practice. Mm-hmm. Whereas Jason Garrett was the old Jimmy John, and as a scout, you're like, oh, I can evaluate my team. Yeah, here we go, But I think there's a day and age now where you have to protect because you don't have the depth, and especially now with all the depth that walked out the door this past year. Yeah, my star players, I coddle them.
Sure.
My other guys, I need to see a little bit more probably.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't need to see Dak practice a whole hell of a lot.
Sure.
I just don't. I need to see Trey Lance practice a ton.
Yeah.
And I need to see Tolbert, practice a ton. I need to see Brooks practice a ton. I need to see Schoonmaker practice a ton.
Yep.
You know, I need to see these guys. I don't need to see Jake Ferguson as much.
Yeah.
You know, I need to see BB. I don't maybe need to see Zack Martin a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to have a plan for how you want to treat your guys.
Sure.
Especially the older star players. But man, it's changed a lot in 20 years of evaluating. Because like I said, there was a time where they used to, the 2-a-day practices, as you know, were 2-a-day practices. Now it's kind of a hour and a half practice and then a walkthrough, you know, so a lot different, but I just can't afford injuries in this day and age.
Yeah, you know, I asked this because, you know, watching Lamb at all these, he does a lot of jumping, a lot of going up to get the catch and coming down. I'm like, hey man, settle down.
Gets tangled up with dudes.
Yeah, one of your biggest losses last year was Diggs, and that happened at practice. And I'm like, it sucks the worst when it happens at practice. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I just wanted your idea on that, and I'm you know, kind of in the same mode as you. I don't need to see
you and I are. I mean, I'm much older than you, but you were on you've seen hard practice in football.
Yeah.
And you've been a part of hard practice in football where it's full pads and, you know, and hey, we all love the full padded practice. We all do. We love the 9-on-7. I'll tell you what, I can't tell you how many times as a personnel guy I saw on the schedule live goal line. And everybody got excited about live goal line except me, because I was thinking, okay, who is going to get rolled up on? Who is going to get double teamed? Who is going to get pinned, and their leg is going to get pinned or their ankle is going to get pinned under them? Yeah. I mean, it was when that period was over, I literally wanted to go over on the sidelines and throw up because I was so nervous about what was going on. But, you know, you have to practice. You can't be scared to practice. Yeah. But, man, there's a way of doing this. But you're right about Lamb. He competes at such a high level, and he gets tangled up with guys and stuff. And then they come down, and you're like going, okay. Who was the guy, Washington? Remember, was it the kid in Washington that we got the receiver from Pittsburgh? Was that the kid's name? He wasn't a kid, but I think it's Washington. At first practice, he's out there. He gets tangled up, and he's done for the year. Kind of
Deontay Thompson or something.
I think it was Washington. I think it was from the kid from Pittsburgh. Yeah, exactly. But
James Washington.
Yeah, James Washington gets tangled up, and you know, and then he's done, and you're like, going, okay, well that's not very good.
That's over with. Yeah.
So, but okay, my last question for you, real quick, if we could,
please.
Where will your attention be during the opening of camp? Where will your attention be? Opening of camp, the thing that you're going to, okay, I've got a checklist of things I'm going through here. This is number 1 on your checklist, opening of camp.
I am incredibly biased, and I kind of get mad every year when all the camp video highlights come out. There's a whole bunch of Dak throwing to receivers, Dak's dancing on the side over here, or we got running backs going through bags, boy. We don't get a bunch of O-line, D-line love. You know what I'm saying? We don't get a bunch of trenches. You know,
I'll try and help you out there if I can. I'm not very good at taking video, but I might be able to like go live for you, and you can watch some one-on-one stuff down there.
Gracias, sir. I need to know what my O-line and my D-line looks like. I need to see what my big characters look like. I love to look at the rookies. I mean that's always fun. Sure. You know, new guys, right? The rookies and the new free agents, if you signed any, right? But I need to know what this center battle's looking like.
Right.
I need to know what one tech is looking, and those are paired together.
They're paired.
The center battle, my one techs, when Osa comes off the field, who goes on? When D-Law comes off the field, who goes on? Where's Michael Parsons going to be lined up at? You're like, just where I ain't got to see him whoop nobody. Yeah. Where is he going to be lined up at? I would like to know, besides Eric Kendricks, who's standing next to him first? It's things like that, right? Front seven, O-line stuff, that's the most important to me. I think the little guys are always going to be fine, right? But, man, how bad is Chuma looking? Like, you know, how bad or good as Tyrant is Guyton looking, right? These are real. I don't need to see Zack Martin. You know, Tyler Smith is kind of earned his place, but he'll still play. Injury wise, Terrence Steele, you good? You straight? You a year removed? You feel a little better now? I would love to see Terrence Steele dominate a camp. That'll make me feel much better. So O-line, D-line, politics, and relations. That's the first thing I'm looking for, Brian.
Yeah, I think that, and I'll do my best opening camp to be down in that area. I'm with you on that. Like I say, maybe I can grab John Machota because he is the king of video. He seems to be like when there's a toe tap, toe drag, sideline catch, he stands right there and always gets it.
That's why you're wasting your time getting John, because he wants them catches and pass breakups. So don't even get John. Go get somebody else.
John's not interested in watching who's going on and off. I think the rotation on both sides of the line is huge.
Yeah.
Who's stacking days, who looks wore down, who looks beat up, who looks like he's gaining strength, who looks like the learning curve is not that deep.
Sure.
You know, those are all things. I totally agree with you. I think the first week of camp, my big ass is going to be down there with those offensive and defensive linemen.
Yeah.
And standing right there and watching and seeing how, you know, Mike Solari and this group are coaching these guys up and what's the rotation there. You know, and what's like I say, hey, who's Mike Zimmer paying attention to down there? Because I think that's clearly an area of concern for this football team. The quicker they can figure that out, I think everything else could come into play or come into place a little bit better focus. But I'm with you on that. My attention will be right there at the opening of camp. You can find me if you're listening to this broadcast and you're out there at camp. You can find me down on the big guy end of the field. I ain't, we'll see what happens on the other end, but I'm more interested in these offensive and defensive linemen myself.
Yeah. And then look, that's just me, but I'm sure there's some people watching this right now that'll love to know how the Brooks and Tolbert battle is going. They would love
that's why you follow John Machota and Todd Archer. Todd Archer, those guys will give you the but yeah, there'll be team periods. They're all together.
Sure.
But I'm interested to see rotation. I'm interested to see where guys are playing. Who's running with the twos, who's running with the threes. Is there a 2 or a 3 that's getting 1 reps? That's who are the coaches trying to get ready to play? Who that's hey, is Nealon all of a sudden getting reps with the 1 a lot more than say Golston? Those are kinds of things that are interesting to me.
Bryan Broaddus, thank you so much for your fantastic questions.
Hey, thank you for answering the questions. Some great answers. I hate this when I always agree with you, but I think you did a pretty good job today, sir.
Hey, man, great minds. You know that old saying, that old adage that they throw around.
Must be because you're just down the street from me. So in the same neighborhood, we're kind of thinking the same way. How about that?
100%, Mr. Wolf. Y'all be sure to follow Voch Lombardi on socials. Follow Bryan, Bryan Broaddus on socials. We'll have some other things for you to follow at some point. Please stay tuned. And we're doing all right. We'll catch y'all next time. Crown.